For my first ever video on this channel, I've decided to talk about the most binge-worthy books you can possibly read. That kind of stories that completely pull you in and won't let you go. Let's try this. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Liv and I just love to talk about books. I'm pretty sure you've experienced already this kind of book where you just say to yourself, one more chapter, and one more chapter becomes another chapter and you end up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and for sure when you're at work that morning you regret your decision. But hey, that book was worth it, right? I personally love taking my time when reading books, especially when reading what feels like a potential 5-star read, just because I do not want it to end. And yet, with the books I'm going to recommend you in this video, I just wanted to go back to them without ever pausing. So let's go for my list of books to binge read you won't be able to put down. The first book I want to talk about is The Will of the Many by James Islington, and that book is a 5-star read for me. So this book, I listened to it in audiobook, and I think it's more than 30 hours audio, and I just couldn't put it down. I just had to keep listening and listening to this book because I feel like, I don't know if it's the atmosphere, but also the story, the characters, everything was so interesting, I just couldn't put it down. In this book, we follow a young man who's 17 years old, I believe, and is called Vis. And Vis is on the run, and he has to hide his own identity. We follow his story, past and present day, until one day he meets someone that is very high ranked in this society. And through this person, he manages to enter the elite academy of the empire. Once he's there, he has to play the perfect student, climb the ranks, and make the right allies, all while pursuing his own mission. It's very hard for me to explain to you the world building because it was really rich and complex. This book is kind of an introduction of this world building because there is a lot. So in the synopsis, we're told that this is gonna enter this academy, but it actually happens, I believe, maybe in the middle of the book or something like that. The first part of the book is actually getting to know this, getting to know the world, and the world building is really rich, and it's incredible because at the end of the book you're like, well, I actually don't know nothing about the world building. There is so much more that is gonna come, I'm pretty sure, in the second book, and I can't wait to listen to it or to read it. We are here in a very strict and layered society that is ruled by a strict hierarchy. And of course, in this society, power and privilege come at the expense of the many. So the many is the people, if you will. Those people that have the power, they will take the will of the many in order for them to have power and to have strength. I know that some people won't agree with me, but I personally loved Vis as a character. I know he's 17 years old and everybody says that he's the best, it's not possible, but I actually really enjoyed this character. I enjoyed him as a person, as a character, because in the book we really explore what he endured during his life. He's only 17, but he endured so much already, and yet he never gives up. For me personally, from the first chapter, I couldn't help but root for him. And I really experienced myself all the injustices that he faces. You just want him to win, no matter the odds. I love the fact that he is in danger because he has to hide his identity, his true identity, to everybody. So he's kind of lonely and you really feel for him, you know? But he still shows resilience, courage, and also intelligence and determination in everything that he's trying, and all of that make him such a compelling protagonist, and I just loved him. Overall, I really liked the cast because I thought the characters were all very complex. You think you know somebody, but actually you don't. You know, you think you can like another character, but actually you can't. So it was really interesting to follow his story and to try to understand who you could trust and who you couldn't. I loved the pacing of the book, and that's why for me it was a binge-worthy read, because even the first part, I would say, the first part for me is introductive, but I still just couldn't stop reading the book. The more you read, the more the tension builds, and obviously the more you want to know what happens next. I'm not even gonna talk about the ending because the ending was just crazy. My brain went like, I didn't see it coming at all, and it just puts everything that I thought I knew about the world in another perspective. I really loved the entirety of this book. If you enjoy elite school settings, political intrigue, morally complex characters, and a story that keeps you thinking long after you finish the book, I think The Wheel of the Many is for you. Okay, let's talk about another book, and it's totally different because this one is a romance. It was also a 5-star read for me. I couldn't stop reading it. I loved it from the first chapter to the last, and that book is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. So you need to know that I'm not a big romance reader, but this book, wow. This book is exactly the kind of romance I love to read. I thought it was perfectly balanced, warm, and so easy to fall into. So from the first chapter, I was completely hooked by the story. I love that in this book, I never felt once a cringe moment, because usually in romance, I'm always like, I don't want to read that. Here in this book, I didn't have that at any time. I thought it was just pure comfort reading and depth. In this story, we follow Emma and Justin. And it's really funny because they share a very unusual problem. How to put it? Every time they date someone, that person ends up marrying their next partner. So Justin, he realizes that, and it happens to him quite a few times. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna post my story on Reddit for fun. And Emma, she sees the story, she reads about it, and she's like, hey, this is exactly my story. I need to reach to this guy. So she reaches out, and after a while, they decide to break the curse with a no strings attached kind of relationship. What makes this book really so binge-worthy are the characters, especially Justin. I mean, come on, Justin is unforgettable, okay? He's not just a handsome face, but very genuinely good, generous. He's a funny man who cares deeply about his family, about people around him. His chapters were so charming and filled with that kind of little moments that make you smile. Emma was equally well written. She's very strong, empathetic, and very thoughtful. I really love this romance because it's not only about their relationship and how they meet and how funny is their story, but it develops also alongside deeper storylines about family, about healing from post-trauma, and also learning to communicate in healthy ways, even when it's hard. There were a lot of emotional moments in the story that I really appreciated. They were really also perfectly balanced with humor, joy, and this cute story, this cute romance story. Even if we talk about deep themes, it never gets heavy, you know? It's still light, it's still great. I must tell you that I read this book, I couldn't put it down, but I read it, the entire book, I think, with a smile on my face. And sometimes I was reading in a park with my dog, and I noticed that I was smiling, and I was like, put on a poker face, leave, because you cannot just read your book smiling like that in front of people. I just couldn't stop smiling while reading this book, especially the chapters when there were a connection with Justin and Emma. I thought it was really cute. I would definitely recommend this story, even if you're not a big romance reader, just as I am not, because it's funny, it's moving, it's tender, and just full of heart. Let's talk about the third book of this list, and this time we're going to be talking about a thriller, and it's The One by John Marrs. I gave this book 4.25 stars. This was my first ever John Marrs book, and I loved it. It's a thriller slash science fiction kind of. The premise is very interesting. We're in a society where a simple DNA test can now match with your one true love, the one, your soulmate. So obviously millions of people have taken it. But what happens when your perfect match turns out to be a killer? maybe. And we're gonna follow in this story different characters. I don't remember actually, but I think 5 characters, maybe more. And we're gonna follow them taking the test. But some of them, they have already partners. So it's gonna be very interesting for them to discover who their true soulmate is. So at first the book doesn't feel like a thriller. It feels more like a mix maybe of romance and sci-fi. But the more we go into the book, the more the thriller part of it comes to light. Each time we follow a different character and the chapters are very short. So it's really easy to read. Also, the writing is really simple. It's easy to just get into the story. I was very interested in the multiple POVs and they kept me turning the pages because I wanted to know the story of this person and then after that of this person and this person. And so I had to, keep turning the pages, a real page turner, really. And then, as I said, as the story builds, it gets darker, really. And by the last third of the book, it's a full-blown page turner with a lot of twists. For me, the concept was really original. The writing was simple, but it works perfectly for a bingeable, fast-paced read. The stories are tightly woven, and I really enjoy this first John Marks, and I want to read more of the author for sure. Now let's talk about another kind of thriller slash historical fiction. I have a French booktube channel and I got recommended that book by one of my followers. And wow, I really enjoyed this book. And this is Katie by Michael McDowell. With the writing, with its atmosphere, I was totally in the 19th century and it worked really well for me. It was about, I don't know, the language, the description, the tone, all felt perfectly suited to the era. For me, and what it was so bingeable is maybe the humor. So Michael McDowell has a very delicious dark humor that he puts in his books, and in this one particularly, I really loved it. I mean, it's tragedies after tragedies after tragedies, and it's quite funny, but it's also sometimes very grotesque. And so it creates a strange mix of horror and irony, mixed together, and I really loved it. It's one of those books where you can shiver at the cruelty on one page and smirk at the absurdity on the next. The title of the book suggests that we're going to follow Katie. We are going to follow Katie, but I think the main character is more Philomela. She is the real protagonist of this story. She is a fascinating young woman who really endures one calamity after the other. I mean, the author is not nice to her. Philomela lives with her mother. It's really hard for them. They are poor. And so the situation financially is almost critical. But one day they receive a letter from her mother's father, and he's got quite a lot of money. But he sends a letter saying he's in danger, that there is someone, a family that wants all of his money and is really in danger. So Philomela decides to go and see what's happening with her grandfather, and she is gonna meet the famous Katie. Okay, now I can open again. Yeah, I think that's better. Then the sun is under the hill, so we can open the curtains and go on with the video. And it's my first ever video in English and it's difficult. I'm taking my time to film this. What I loved about this book is that beneath the gothic horror, it's really gothic, but beneath that, the novel also paints a sharp picture of all the social inequalities of the time and the struggle of the lower classes. In this society, people are really focused on the appearances, but they lack compassion completely. One of the reasons I put this book in this list is also because I was very astonished throughout the book because the story never went where I thought it would go. Michael McDowell knows how to surprise the reader, and that is throughout the book. And it's not about big twists and turns, it's just that it takes another way that you wouldn't expect. And so that leads you to strange and unexpected situation, and you just need to keep reading because you want to know what's gonna happen next. So if you enjoy historical fiction and gothic horror together, mixed together, with a satirical edge, with a rich historical atmosphere in its society and in its decor, and unpredictable twist, I think Katie might be your next captivating read. So that's it, guys. That's my list of books I simply couldn't put down. I'd love to know which books have done that for you too. Because my TBR can always get longer. Or maybe not, but who cares? So if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this list, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. And until then, happy binge reading! Bye everyone!